Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Let's start this morning with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our first speaker this evening is Senator Joan Lovely, but first I'd like to recognize the other public officials in attendance today. We have Brendan McCarthy from Jerry Paracella's office, Councillor Paul Guanci, and Councillor Estelle Rand. No further ado, Senator Lovely.
Well, I had prepared remarks, but they're in here somewhere, so let me speak from the heart. It's an honor to be here today with all of you. This is really a really wonderful turnout. As we mark a really difficult time in our history, 20 years ago, today, a day that was just like this, beautiful. It was a Tuesday. I know you all remember where you were at that time, if you were old enough to remember. And I remember I just dropped the kids off at school. You know, the new school year had begun, and I went off to work, and as soon as I hit work, heard that there was something very wrong, and rushed to a TV to see what was going on and watched it unfold out of New York. And how horrifying for our country, for us as a nation, to watch our land being terrorized. But you know, they were all throughout that day, I think we didn't know how much was happening until it unfolded. And one thing that I'll never forget is that night, after we had picked up the kids from school, the schools were locked down. We were finally able to get them home, get them safe, because we didn't know what was happening, right? None of us knew. We didn't know if there were any more airplanes up there, jets that may come down somewhere. But I'll never forget that my husband and I piled the 3 kids in bed with us, and we went to sleep. But all I could hear is the jet fighters that were flying over about every half an hour, protecting the East Coast, where we live. And I heard them all night long, and my kids kept saying, "Mommy, what is that?" I said, "Oh, honey, those are military jets. Something bad happened today, and they're protecting us." I'll never forget that. And I want to talk just quickly, but most importantly, about the responders that went to Ground Zero in the search and recovery of all the victims. Those that ran into danger to try to save a life. And this task force right here was the first across the country to go to New York, to be at Ground Zero, and the danger that they put themselves in, yes. And the danger that they put themselves in to save others, not knowing what could happen. That's what these experts are trained to do, and that's what they want to do, and that's what they did on that fateful day, and weeks and months after, until that site was all recovered. But we'll never recover from this incident. Our world has been changed forever. All we can do is try to stay united. I remember the weeks after 9/11 of 01, our country was united. Never seen anything like it in my lifetime. And we need to continue to do that, to fight this war on terror, to fight now that the war in Afghanistan is over, but to be able to get more people out who want to get out. I see our congressman is here. I want to thank him for his service and everything he has done, and I know he will be speaking to all of you. So I said I would be brief. I just wanted to say, again, I'm honored to be here to represent my hometown of Beverly, where I'm proud to see this task force sit and ready to help at any time to save a life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Lovely. Our next speaker is a retired Marine and Congressman Seth Moulton.
To be fair, not retired. I only did 5 years, not 20. So, Marine veteran. Proud to be here with all of you, including many fellow veterans, this morning. 20 years may seem like a long time, but for survivors, for those who lost loved ones, and for our first responders, it can sometimes seem like yesterday. So today I want to remember the nearly 3,000 lives that were so cruelly taken from us that day, including the lives of hundreds of first responders who were lost in the line of duty. One of the worst days of our lives as Americans, the very best Americans showed up. Firefighters, paramedics, police officers, Franco's brothers ran up the stairs as people ran down and as the towers burned. Workers at the Pentagon crawled through fire and rubble, carrying co-workers on dislodged doors and other makeshift stretchers. When they learned about the other attacks, American heroes on Flight 93 called their families and then rushed the cockpit, knowing that by risking their lives, they might save hundreds of others. After the initial tragedy, Americans from across the country banded together. One of the most important memories that we should all carry from September 11th of what it was like here on September 12th. A sense of unity and purpose that I have never felt before or again in my lifetime. Despite toxic dust and smoke that burned for days, people like Mark and other members of Massachusetts One showed up to look for people, return the dead to their families so that they might find some semblance of peace. For those of you who were present, thank you for taking that risk. And for those of you who have volunteered in the years since, by responding to Americans and others in their hours of need, thank you for volunteering. And welcome home to those of you who have spent the last week responding to Hurricane Ida. So many of us found our lives changed by 9/11. I'm confident that I wouldn't be here speaking to you this morning if not for my decision to serve in the Marines and the 4 tours that I ended up doing in Iraq. It shaped my life, and I think we all know that the scars of 9/11 and the aftermath run deep in our communities throughout the country. American Flight 11 and United Flight 175 took off from Logan. This morning I spent some time at an event in Salem reading the names of 23 people from our communities, including this one, who were lost in the attacks. 20 years on, for so many of us that have been able to add to those memories, new experiences, the pain might be a little dull, but in homes in Amesbury, Andover, Bedford, Beverly, Danvers, Billerica, Burlington, Peabody, Linfield, Manchester, Marblehead, Rowley, Swampscott, Tewksbury, Wakefield, there are still empty seats at the table on holidays. Fathers and mothers who left for a work trip and never came home. So today, as we reflect together, let us resolve to pass on to our children the memories of the lost. Let's keep telling their stories. Let's continue to care for the injured and grieving not just on that day, but in the 20 years since. Let's continue to seek justice, not only against the people who carried out these attacks, but the people inspired by them who still threaten us today. And most of all, let us share the love for our neighbors that was so prevalent on that day and September 12th, that inspired people like those of you here in Task Force 1 to do the truly American work of volunteering to serve others every single day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Congressman Walton. Our next speaker is retired New York Police Department Franco Barberio, who was at the World Trade Center that day.
Good morning, everybody. So, when I spoke with Mark and he asked me to come up and spend the day with the team at their memorial celebration, I thought a lot about what I wanted to say. And from that day all the way through to today, and I'm sure for many years moving forward, we've built quite a bond and a friendship with the task force. And this is a bit of a personal message to Mark and the team, but I'm certainly happy to deliver it on such a day like today, especially 20 years after the attacks. So first I want to thank Mark and the entire Mass Task Force for reaching out to me for this memorial celebration and ceremony, your gracious hospitality, and certainly your enduring friendship. For those of us in the emergency response, public safety world, some with gray hair, right? The attacks of September 11th were truly a defining moment in our personal and professional lives. We may have gotten promoted since then, made lateral moves, retired, or even relocated to different parts of the country over the last 20 years. But like we all hear and we all say, every single one of us remembers exactly where we were when we saw that first tower on fire, or we saw the plane hit the second tower. From that faithful day, the first responder emergency service world has changed and responded in ways we never would have nor could have imagined. Look around, especially at this task force. Some people are simply born to serve. That's what they embody. That's what you embody. At every level, locally here in Beverly, regionally, to state level, and nationally. You're forever etched in this historic time. In order to continue this day and how it changed us forever, we must remember those we have lost that served alongside us, that represented the first responder community, and of course, the victims who we so valiantly serve every single day. Another way we can honor today is through our actions. 10 years ago, right? I can't believe it's 10 years, right? When the task force came down to pick up this piece of steel for this beautiful memorial that they have, right? It was such an honor to be there with them that day and spend that bit of time in such a moment in the task force's history and in their history. It will ever be forever in my mind and in my heart. So perhaps, I guess, how would we face this anniversary, right? To recognize everything it represents, to acknowledge the lives that were taken so violently from us all on that sunny September morning, to remember where we were and how we changed in the years since, and then to look calmly into the future without shying away from the experiences that have brought us to where we are today, because there's still much, much more work to do. I want to say a personal thank you to Mark and the team for the support you gave to New York City 20 years ago, and to me personally.
Thank you, Franklin.
Thank you.
He's going to turn around and make a second pass.
Well, that was a wonderful sight to see. Our next speaker is Mike Gomes from Massachusetts Task Force 1, who was also at the World Trade Center that day and the following days.
Good morning, and welcome to all joining us on this solemn anniversary. I've been asked to speak to you on behalf of the 72 members of the Mass Task Force who responded to the World Trade Center on September 11th. We're in the shadow of our 9/11 memorial, and it is dedicated to the memory of the events of September 11th so that others never forget. This monument is a lasting tribute from our members to the sacrifice of so many on that fateful day. It is a monument to the nearly 3,000 victims of that day of days, people of all walks of life whose lives and the lives of their loved ones were forever changed. Those who answered the call were witness to the Pearl Harbor of our generation, and each of us came back changed in many ways. It is also a monument to the members of the public safety agencies of New York City who paid such a heavy price during the tragic events of that fateful day. 343 firefighters, 37 police officers of the Port Authority of New York, 23 police officers of the NYPD, 8 private service EMTs, 3 New York court officers, and a patrolman of the New York Fire Patrol were lost that day. And the losses continue. 241 members of the New York Police Department, 254 members of the FDNY have died of 9/11 related illnesses. Thousands of others who worked in the aftermath of this tragedy are also sharing in this fate. This includes 2 of our brothers who have died of 9/11 related illnesses. It is a monument built by the members of the Massachusetts Task Force that reflects our dedication to our community and helping our fellow man. The 200+ members of the Massachusetts Task Force volunteer their time and through their force of will have built this organization from its very humble beginnings in the basement of the Beverly High School into what you see at this facility today. The true foundation of this monument and this organization are the people of the Massachusetts Task Force. Over the last 28 years, hundreds of members have passed through these gates. They and their families have sacrificed much to be ready to answer the call when needed. This is reflected in our team logo that features a Minuteman, always ready to answer the call on a moment's notice. 20 years have passed, and we reflect on the memories that seem like they were only yesterday. They remind us of members we have lost, and we would be remiss not to mention them. The first member that we lost was Deputy Chief Bruce Kilmer. He was a rescue specialist on 9/11. There are some very poignant pictures that are around this facility, and one of them is of Bruce. He is standing at the edge of the chasm of 9/11 on the edge of a large steel beam looking out into the distance. It's a picture of his back, but it's a very poignant picture of Bruce. And he was the first member that we lost. The next member we lost was Sal Braccoloni. Braccoloni was a logistician. Big Sal. He was a fixture here at the task force. He and Eddie were the heart and soul of our logistics, and logistics is what makes the team go. Amateurs practice tactics, professionals practice logistics, and without them, we would never be able to do anything. He was a great loss. Another member that we lost was Dave Clemens. He was our oldest responder. And I had the pleasure of speaking to his daughter this morning here. He was 68 years old when he answered the call on September 11th. She called this his happy place. He was always a fixture here. He was always smiling. And again, he was part of the machinery that made this place go. He was a machinist, and he would custom make parts for us when we broke something and we needed something in order to continue the mission. Dave was always here and ready to give us a hand. Lieutenant Richard Parker Jr. was our safety officer, and he was a former member of the Boston Fire Department. Captain Thomas Kenny, otherwise known as TK. He died of 9/11 illness, and he was my dear friend. He was my mentor. If you wanted to find the face of the Mass Task Force, TK was it. It was a huge loss for us when we lost him. It was a huge loss to the fire service because he was an instructor of the utmost reputation, known throughout New England. Many, many lives have been changed by their interaction with TK, and I am a better man for having known him. Captain Brad Smith, he was a medical specialist on 9/11. He also died of 9/11 illness. He did a special job for us. MEMA has a headquarters in Framingham called the Bunker. He lived close by. Brad was our guy in the bunker. He was always there, manning our desk, and that way we knew what was going on around the state and in our communities when there were major events going on. The last member of our team to pass was Deputy Chief Michael Polidoro. Michael was a hazmat specialist, and he was assigned to my squad on 9/11. We built quite a bond. All of us who went on this operation built a bond. And I would call each and every one of them every September 11th. Michael was diagnosed with ALS and had a valiant fight for approximately 6 years. Last year when I called, the voice on the other end of the phone was weak, and I knew it would be the last time that I ever had a chance to share our 9/11 with him. He has passed, and he again has been greatly missed. These 7 members may have passed from our presence, but they are never far from our thoughts. We will never forget you. So here stands our monument and the 9/11 Museum. They were built to ensure that once we, the witnesses of these tragic events, are gone, that those who follow will never forget. May God bless you all, and may God bless the Massachusetts Task Force. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those wonderful remembrances. Our next speaker is Mark Foster, the program manager here at Task Force 1. Mark?
In closing, I would tell you what Jerry Junta, my incident commander at the World Trade Center on 9/11, would say. As he is now representing us at Ground Zero today, and he's not here, but he's down there at Ground Zero. I talked to him this morning. He said, thank you for all showing up. Jerry defined what the term never forget means to me and our dedication to the 9/11 Memorial. He said we should never forget. Never forget all those that perished that day. Never forget all the responders that went in, not knowing their fate, and many paying the ultimate sacrifice to save others. Never forget all the families and friends of 9/11 that are affected to this day for the rest of their lives. Never forget all the military and past and present who are still out there fighting for our freedom. Never forget. And to my team members on the Mass Task Force, this 9/11 Memorial you see and you enter this facility is a reminder when you give up those many precious weekends and many other hours away from your family and friends, training to be the best. Not because if we will ever need to go somewhere, but when we will need to go somewhere. And last but not least, Jerry mentioned to this, and I checked it out today, and it is true. If you sit in the, well, there used to be a bench there, but if you get kind of in the middle of the memorial, look at the flag. The piece of steel looks like a hand reaching up and trying to grab something. And that's the people reaching out, and I promise we'll always reach back.
Thank you very much for attending with us today. It has been my honor to share this morning with the people at this podium and with all of you and with the memories of our fallen. Please feel free to visit the grounds, the museum, the memorials. Thank you very much again for coming this morning, and go in peace.
Nothing wrong, right? You've read some of the stories.